The Living Zen-podcast is a gift from the Victoria Zen Centre. If you enjoy it, please forget about making a donation. Instead, just share it with a friend that you think will enjoy it as much as you did. You may also consider purchasing the Living Zen-podcast app, which is available for iPod, iPhone, and Android. If you happen to visit or reside in Victoria, British Columbia, I'd like to invite you to attend the Tuesday evening Zen open house that takes place every week at the University of Victoria's Interfaith Chapel. This event is co-sponsored by UVic Multifaith Services and the Victoria Zen Centre. For more information, please visit our website at zenwest.ca. Mumonkan, Case 39. Yunmen says, "You have misspoken." A monk said to Yunmen, "The radiance serenely illuminates the whole universe." Before he had finished the line, Yunmen interrupted him and asked, "Aren't those the words of Zhang Zhu?" The monk said, "Yes, they are." Yunmen said, "You have misspoken." Later, the master Sishin took up this matter and asked, "Tell me, where did the monk misspeak?" Wumen says, if you can see the uncompromising and rigorous operation of Yunmen's method and how the monk misspoke, then you qualify as teacher of humans and devas. If it is not yet clear, then you cannot save even yourself. Wumen's verse says, "A line is cast in the waters. The greedy will be caught. If your mouth opens just a bit, your life is completely lost." Okay, Master Yunmen is a teacher that we have come across 3 times previously in this record of Muman, the Mumonkan, the Gateless barrier. He is in, what is he in? The first one is, the world is vast and wide. Why do we put on our robes at the sound of the bell? Yeah. The second one is one of my favorites. What is Buddha? Dry stick of shit. Yeah. Then there's Tungshan's 60 blows. I spare you 60 blows. And then we have this one. Yunmen is boy, he's a tough character. He's not in the sense, he's not like Rinzai or Obaku hitting and shouting at people. He's tough in that there is no margin for misspeaking. There's no margin for error when you're dealing with Yunmen. And so, as always, I encourage you to first take an opportunity to read the case and to allow yourself to dissolve into it so that we let go of our position being outside of it, let go of our position being separated in space and time from this interaction, this transaction, and allow ourselves to completely dissolve into this interaction between a monk, the disciple, and the master, between this anonymous monk and Yunmen. The monk says to Yunmen, "The radiance serenely illumines the whole universe." Now, many teachers, when they're talking about this case, point out, and this is very important, that this line is actually a line from a poem, or it's actually an enlightenment verse of another person, a lay person. I can't remember what his name is. I brought the book up, and my thinking about it at first was to give you the information, give you the that this was layman so-and-so, and his enlightenment verse, this was his story, and this was his enlightenment verse. But this, to do so, is to actually be caught with my mouth entirely open. To do so is to undermine, I think, the fundamental point of the case that Yunmen is trying to make. We all practice in Zen Center, and these days, if you have some kind of spiritual practice, you'll find that the world is full of people who know the quotes from their particular tradition very well. In fact, I laughed when I saw this case come up for me to speak about, because it was something that I was reflecting about. As you know, I have this iPhone now, right? And one of the things that my approach or my reasoning for getting it was to build the voice of the Victoria Zen Centre through using social media. So I got myself this Twitter account, and I've got Twitter, and I've got all these people that I follow, and a bunch of people follow me. This is probably just as good as Chinese for people who aren't involved in this kind of stuff. So basically what this means is that I have this button I can push, and I have this sort of endless flow of little kind of thoughts that people have, or ideas that people have. And what occurred to me the other day was that, maybe I'd say 80% of the stuff that is sort of floating by from, the 200 or something people that I follow are quotations. And a lot of them are really great quotations. I mean, you get Albert Einstein, and you get Mahatma Gandhi, and you get, all these great Zen masters, and, pretty much any time of the day you can push on this little button and you get this person who's quoting this great thing. And the other day, I just, every once in a while, I think those of you who have practiced with me long enough see that I kind of have these patterns where I'm kind of soft and tolerant and easygoing. And then I get kind of full. And then it's just I just kind of, I have enough and I need a laxative or something like that. And I gotta kind of take a big dump. And that's kind of where I was getting with Twitter. Because the thought kind of struck me that I was like, wow, there are hundreds of thousands, millions of people using Twitter, and all of them, if the sort of trend continues, 80% of them are putting, quote after quote of this really great stuff. But I wonder how the world would be transformed if each of the people who quoted this stuff were able to transform within into beings that were capable of producing this wisdom themselves. Not just sort of rolling it forward, saying, oh, that's really good, I'm going to quote it. Maybe it's such a good tweet, maybe it's such a good quote that somebody else will tweet that, retweet me. Yeah? And maybe they'll think that I'm really smart because I know all these great quotes or something like this. And what you end up with is a whole bunch of words, and yet the world is not changed. The individuals are not changed. And fundamentally, we continue to run forward with more and more wise words and no sort of net transformation in the number of wise deeds or the wise manifestations in the world. Maybe it would be better if people tweeted this stuff less and sort of acted on it more. And I think that particularly for Yunmen, and I think it goes for everybody, if you practice in a committed and a sincere fashion in a Zen center, at some point you find that talking about Zen or talking about practice or talking about awakening or talking about transformation with other people, it sort of loses its sweetness or loses its sort of entertainment value. Because what you start to find is that when we talk about it so much, it's easy to become deluded. It's easy to become fooled by the idea that there is actual change going on. If we keep talking about transformation, maybe transformation will take place. But I think for most of the people, maybe all the people in this room, we can observe that this isn't necessarily the case. And on the other hand, after practicing with a group of people, or with even an individual person, I think even a close relationship, a marriage, or even a close friendship, when there is genuine transformation, when there is genuine realization, do you actually have to even talk about it? There's suddenly there is change. Suddenly something is being manifested differently. Something has transformed. When people talk about awakening experiences, or whether it doesn't happen so much, I find in the Zen Center itself, it's rare that people will come down into the interview room and say, "I've had an awakening experience." I think maybe they know me well enough to know that don't come with that. But sometimes people contact me and they say, this thing happened, and do you think that's a realization, or do you think that that's an awakening experience? And the question that I always ask is, what changed? Awakening isn't something that happens in our head. It's not a good idea. It's not even a clear insight or an epiphany. Unless it's followed, unless it is immediately it transforms our very perception of the manifestation of our life in such a way that we cannot continue in the way that we had gone before. That we look at how we've done things, and because of this experience that we've had, it becomes impossible. I can no longer relate to that person in this way. I can no longer relate to the way that I go about living my life, or my work environment, or this individual in the same way, because of this shift that's taken place in my awareness. So it's always this transformation in manifestation arising from the experience of unification, one true nature. A monk said to Yunmen, "The radiance serenely illumines the whole universe." This sort of model that's laid out in the case is a model that we see over and over again in the Mumonkan and in a lot of Zen literature. If you look at the records of various teachers, including the record of Yunmen, you'll find that it's often the case that a monk or a lay person or somebody who's inquiring comes to this teacher and they say, blah, 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 they make this big, long quotation. And sometimes they'll ask a question about the quotation. And sometimes they'll just get to the end of the quotation and say, "Isn't it wonderful?" Or say a turning word. And so Yunmen, I'm sure, is very familiar with people coming and quoting lots and lots and lots of wonderful awakening poems. And I'm sure that as a teacher, Yunmen often uses plenty of quotes himself in teaching. But I'm thrilled with when I read this case, because Yunmen demonstrates this in the other koans that he does, but to be able to, in the very moment, completely turn the situation on its head to reveal this activity in its clarity is something that Yunmen does exquisitely well. He does it as well in the dry stick of shit case, which I think is also just eloquent. But here as well, interrupting a flow, or interrupting the scene, or interrupting this monk. I think we've all been this monk in one time or another. And the monk comes to the master rehearsed, the monk comes to the master with what I'm going to say to the master. And I think that when we're engaging in interview, or when we're engaging in training of any kind, when we prepare something like this, it's always a dangerous footing with a Zen teacher. We come with the whole scene laid out. This is what interview is going to go like, or this is what I'm going to say to the teacher, and won't it be wonderful? Or, I'm going to express my understanding of this particular phrase and lay it out for the master, and he'll probably, think I'm really great. We don't know what this monk was thinking, but clearly there's some sort of prefabricated idea of how this is going to go. And most often, stylistically, or most often sort of the form, the sort of cultural norm would be to allow this person to complete what they have to say and then to interact. But Yunmen, literally, as soon as this monk opens his mouth, it's like Yunmen just jumps down his throat. You've opened your mouth and provided me an opportunity. In the first line, Yunmen, who is an established, experienced teacher, who's probably had many people come to him and quote this very line. It's a famous poem. Has heard it before, and he knows where it's from. And so before the monk can even get the first line out, Yunmen interrupts him and says, hey, that's Zangzu, right? This is a tricky question. Whose words are you speaking? Whose words are they? He says, aren't those the words of Zangzu? And the monk says, yes, they are. They're Zangzu's words. And so Yunmen says, you have misspoken. The teacher is, this teacher, I should say, not this teacher, but this Yunmen is never asleep. And so his primary focus as a teacher, as a bodhisattva, is on liberation. It's on awakening. He's not interested in how many verses you've memorized, and he's not interested in how many books you've read, and he's not interested in how many even sutras and scriptures and great quotations that you're able to recite. In this moment, what is the word that arises from your own nature? What is the words that arise from the Buddha that is not outside? What is the turning word, the word that inspires and awakens, that comes out of your own mouth in this very moment? Share that with me. Open your mouth and speak that. Not these dead old bones that you've dug up from some crypt. You want to jangle around to demonstrate your proficiency in the Dharma. So Yunmen, this monk, is probably utterly baffled and has gone back to his room and pulled out his book and said, oh, the master says that I've misspoken. I wonder how I've misquoted this. Did I get the wrong word? I'm sure I had it right. But Yunmen isn't concerned with the accuracy of the poetry. He's concerned with the origin of the wisdom that is expressed through the line. He doesn't want a better recitation of the poem, but he wants a unique or a original or even, we might say, a connected recitation which arises from the same origin as the poem. This poem is, as I said, it's the awakening poem. It's the poem, it's the words that flowed out of an individual when they had a great realization, a deep realization. Yunmen is pointing out that he's not interested in you quoting this person's words, but sharing this person's experience, finding your own awakening, realizing it in this moment, and then expressing it clearly. Now, there are some teachers that will take this as being, and I'm sure it happens all the time, this is definitely fuel on the fire of the anti-literature sort of movement in the Zen school. Don't quote these dead bones, right? But when we look, we find that also all of these Zen masters use quotes. They use teachings. They use sutras and scriptures. They use the words of other masters in their teaching. So we can't say that the Zen masters are, it's not black or white. It's not that the Zen masters want nothing to do with books, and it's not that they want only recitation of scripture. This is this balancing point that we have to realize, that always, always, always in the Zen school, our awareness, our practice, our focus is on realization. It's on awakening. All of these scriptures, as the Buddha said and is pointed out over and over again throughout the generations, all of these teachings are fingers pointing at the moon. This is the metaphor that's been used. That they're instructive in the sense that they can point you in the right direction. But it's not enough to know all the fingers. It's not enough to be able to describe the differences between the fingers. It's not enough to be able to recognize whose finger that is that's pointing. And this is what we can get caught up in, fooling around with, paying all of our attention and spending all of our energy on becoming like Angulimala. Yeah, this is the character who made a necklace out of fingers, right? And that's how we can approach our practice as becoming finger collectors. This person pointed it this way. This person pointed it this way. This person pointed it this way. And when we have this beautiful necklace of fingers, we will have still completely missed the point of practice, which is to awaken. The experience of awakening, the power in words, the power in scripture or the sutras or the words of the masters arises when we have ourselves experienced what has been experienced. We have recognized and affirmed the Dharma ourselves, so that when we are speaking something, when we are reciting this quote, there is a significant difference in when we're reciting it from our heads as a memory of a poem or something that we admire or appreciate, and when we recognize within it our own experience, we recite it then from a place of knowing, of recognizing, of having experienced and being in this place of origin from whence these words have arisen. And the impact of speaking those words is then completely other. And it is the case where you may have another monk who has experienced this realization, this awakening for themselves, reciting this poem to Yunmen, and that Yunmen would not have questioned it. Yunmen would not have interrupted. Yunmen would not have said anything. In fact, if he had asked, who are those the words of Zhang Zhu? The response may not have been, yes, they are. Not out of a selfish desire to claim the words for one's own, but to maybe say, the vessel, the pipes are Zhang Zhu's, but the water is my own. Later, the master Sishin took up this matter. Apparently, this was 200 years after. So this interaction has hung around for 200 years after it. And you can only imagine that this was probably, how long did it take for this little interaction to take place? Somebody says something to Yunmen. Yunmen interrupts him, asks about the source of the quote. It's affirmed. And Yunmen says, oh, that's a mistake. You've slipped up on that one. It's a very quick interaction. But 200 years later, another master is commenting, asking questions. What's being pointed out in this case is of significant importance. And we need to investigate it, not just as an interesting interaction between two ancient worthies, but as a way of looking at how we ourselves approach the Dharma, how we ourselves maybe collect the Dharma, collect knowledge, collect sort of quotes of wisdom. Maybe if we have enough, maybe if our necklace is big enough, maybe if we can have enough quotes to have something to say in every situation, then people will look at me as a wise person, or even as a teacher. But I'm spending somebody else's money, and at the root of it, it is not something that allows my own awakening. It is not something that facilitates or promotes transformation, liberation from suffering. Mumonkan says, if you can see the uncompromising and rigorous operation of Yunmen's method and how the monk misspoke, then you qualify as teachers of humans and devas. This glorious operation is something that I've sort of been touching on, is Yunmen's complete and unwavering focus on living awakening, living Zen. Don't present dead Zen. Don't present dead words. Don't appear in front of Yunmen flat on your feet, or he'll knock you down. This is a wonderful gift, I'm sure cultivated through decades of practice and interaction. His focus is, as far as we can tell from the record, it's unbroken. You could come to him when he was coming out of the bathroom. You could come to him when he got up in the morning. You could come to him in the middle of the afternoon, and no matter what he was doing, he always had a doorway. There was always something to interact with for him. There was always a way of expressing this great matter wholeheartedly. This is something that each of us has to take up in our own lives. Not making the mistake of differentiating between when we're doing spiritual practice, when we're doing our everyday life. What activities are holy and pure and real Zen, and what activities are just mundane, daily, boring sort of grist for the mill. When we're able to see this in our own lives, when we're able to engage in each and every activity in our lives as the unfolding activity of the Dharma, we become more and more able to interact in this way. We become more and more able to share in this way. We become more and more able to, through our actions arising from this experience, our own awakening. This is a transformative experience. When we're able to manifest from this place, then we don't need to speak so much. How do you manifest one true nature? Someone asks you. What is the meaning of Bodhidharma coming from the West? Rather than opening your mouth, maybe you embrace that person in a hug. Maybe you clap that person on the back. Maybe you offer that person a cup of tea or a cookie. Maybe you draw them a picture. Maybe you sing them a song. Maybe you do a little dance. I can't tell you what it is because it needs to arise from your own awakening. Maybe you ring a bell, huh? But for the individual with whom you are interacting, the experience of that transaction becomes not about the song, not about the dance, not about the picture, not about the clap on the back or the hug. There is something else that is manifested, a deep rootedness, a connectedness with that experience of awakening itself. And this is the home, the origin of the spoken word as well, of wisdom. Sometimes we do say something. But in Zen, we like to sort of save that for the last because it's the easiest one to get caught up in the head. So, this question, this point that Yunmen is making in this case is very much one of the origins, or one of the he encapsulates the practice of koans in this case. When we are investigating a case, even the most simple case is in practice no different from the most complex one. How do you manifest one true nature when you're seeing a flower? How do you manifest unconditional love when you're seeing a stone? How do I manifest my true nature as the vast cosmos? And as we sit with these cases, we can, just like the monk in this koan, we can create scenarios. We can say, if I do this, then Eshu will do that. Or we can say, oh, I heard about so-and-so doing this, and I'm going to try that. And we look at the objective of doing koan practice as being passing koans, or grasping koans, or proceeding through some kind of schedule or curriculum, that's the word, of koans. But we miss the point that the function of doing koans is awakening. Whether it's the first koan you do or the 100th koan that you do, the practice is the dissolution of the subjective self, unification, the experience of this praticca samutpada, complete unification, and the experience of spontaneously arising together with all things. You need to die. The self, the perspective, the way that we hold ourselves in that instant, that moment, needs to completely die. We need to go to absolute zero. No inside, no outside, no subject, no object, no me, no flower, no emptiness, shunyata. And when I say no me, no flower, I don't mean nothing. When I say shunyata, emptiness, I don't mean a void. I mean the spaciousness that has as its content all things. Potential, pure, unadulterated potential. And out of that, spontaneously there is a birth. Something arises. This is the manifestation of true nature. All things arising from one. And there's manifestation. Causal manifestation. When it arises, we find that we are able to completely hit the mark. We're able to completely manifest. We know what is being spoken about. It's not a mystery. It's not a concept. It's not a riddle that I need to puzzle out. We know what it means to manifest unconditional love as a flower. We know what it means to manifest true nature as a stone because we're doing it. But in a moment, in a flash, in a period so short that it seems impossible to calculate, there is this gap that opens up between who I think I am and what it is that I'm doing. The I am self rears its head and begins to make assessments. And immediately in this, we are not able to manifest true nature. We are not able to be complete in the activity that we're engaging in because we've divided into what we're doing and what we're thinking about what we're doing. And this is in koan practice, it is death. It is the closing bell. We cannot continue. We've let go. If you can see the uncompromising and rigorous operation of Yunmen's method and how this monk misspoke, then you qualify as teacher of humans and devas. We must have this experience in our own lives. We must have this experience in our own activity. And we can do it in many ways. We can do it through Zen practice. We can have this experience of complete at home in sitting, in chanting, in walking. But we can also have this experience that we become aware of in doing our art, doing some exercise that we enjoy. We can do it, we can experience it even if we're a speaker. There are moments where there is a complete dissolution of subject and object, inside and outside as we speak. And usually what happens in those moments is powerful, is transformative. This is the origin of art. This is the origin of art as... that's what we call it, in fact. I'm trying to sort of make it around. But this is, when we see this experience take place in sport, we say, that's art. And when we see it happen in painting, we say, that's art. It transcends being pictures or exercises or interactions, and we call it art. When it happens in music, we say, man, that guy's an artist, or that's art. When it happens in speech, we say the same thing. So in some ways we might, we might say that the function of Zen, the activity of Zen, is for us to make each breathing moment, each interaction, each activity that we engage in, whether it's painting something beautiful or doing the dishes or going to the bathroom, each moment of our lives to become art. Not art that we're going to hang on the wall, because that's not the art. That's the picture. That's the piece of music. That's the thing that we've created. But the art is the dynamic activity that takes place in the moment, of which the object is a product. The words are a product. The painting is a product. The music is a product. If this is not yet clear, then don't try to teach other people, because you can't even save yourself. That's what the Yunmen is saying in this comment. His verse says, a line is cast in the waters. The greedy will be caught. Yunmen throws his line into the water. And the way that I look at this is that he baits this monk. Yunmen is a very intelligent person, and he's been in Zen for a long time, and he's been teaching people for a long time. So when this monk comes with this quote, he knows where it comes from. And maybe he puts on this sort of excited, oh, aren't those the words of Zhangzu? And the monk thinks, great, I can have this, conversation of admiration about Zhangzu, and he says, oh yeah, that's who it is. And Yunmen just mercilessly yanks the carpet out from underneath him and sends him likely into a real tizzy. Oh, you've misspoken. You've mistaken me for someone who wants to talk about poetry, to talk about the fruit. Joshi Roshi used to talk about how people would come to the Zen Center and talk about all these things, and he said it was like talking about appliances. And he says, some of you like yoga or massage or all this kind of martial arts. And he said, these are like appliances to me. And you spend all of your time talking about and learning about your appliances. I'm going to become a better toaster, a 4-slice toaster, or a faster blender, or something like this. And he said, what I'm interested in is having you stick your finger in the socket, having you understand that which makes it all work. Because when you realize this, then you become all appliances. And this is important. If your mouth opens just a little bit, your life is completely lost. Our practice is to live in the stream. There's a lot of imagery in Buddhist monasteries of fish and dragons, and this image is that there's these fish that enter into the pool, right? This metaphor that's often used in Buddhism of stream entrant, this person who comes to recognize that the world is not solid, but it's an activity. It's something that happens dynamically, spontaneously, moment to moment, it's moving. This is stepping off of the bank and into the water, transforming into these fish, learning how to operate, learning how to move, to exist, to interact in something which is not solid, but completely fluid. And then, of course, there's this metaphor of the effort of practice, the effort of really familiarizing yourself, becoming proficient, becoming transformed by the effort of practice. And the metaphor is that these fish are sort of swimming upstream as they do and coming to a waterfall. And the fish are trying to jump up the waterfall. And sometimes they get sucked back down and it's a rough ride. And this is very much like the experience of practice. We're swimming against the stream, trying to go up the waterfall, becoming familiar with the experiences of what it is to live in something that is flowing, that isn't solid. And then the metaphor is that when the fish becomes strong enough, when the fish becomes clear enough on what it is to live in this flowing activity, they make the leap up the waterfall into the sort of bigger pool where they're transformed. And this is where dragons come from. It's a lovely image. A line is cast in the waters, the greedy will be caught. The monk is greedy for acquisition, wants another finger for his necklace. And Yunmen he's like a master angler that uses only one hook. Maybe there's nothing even on the hook and he's able to catch fish. If your mouth opens just a little bit, if you waver in your practice even a little bit from awakening, if you even take a step away towards acquisition, then this life, this living activity, this spontaneous activity, the manifestation of the cosmos, this activity of plus and minus, you're pulled right out of the water and into this stagnant object, subject, this and that, good and bad world. And life, which is this activity, is completely lost. Thanks for listening to the Living Zen podcast. If you follow Living Zen through iTunes, I would very much appreciate it if you would take a moment to let me know what you think about it by rating or reviewing the podcast, so that new listeners can also hear what you have to say. Thank you for your time and for your support.